Britta Fischlin, thank you so much for joining me. Tell me, where are you joining me from today?
Thanks, first of all, Michelle, for the invitation. I'm so happy to be here. And I am in very sunny California,
Oh,
um,
nice.
in Silicon Valley,
Yeah,
Bay Area.
yeah, very nice area. I love it, but that's not an American accent. So,
No.
your name really. So, tell me a little bit more about you. Who's Britta Fischlin?
Yes, so I actually grew up in Germany
Hmm.
and lived in France and Spain before I moved here to the area in 1997.
Okay.
Um, So it's been very much an international career all along, while I was working in the high-tech industry. And even today, most of my clients are all over the world, really.
Amazing, amazing. Yes, and that's how I met you. I met you through Pick My Brain. I had this wonderful, interesting connection pop up, and we had such a great conversation that I thought to invite you as a masterclass host, and why I would love to introduce you and learn a little bit more about what you do because you've you work in marketing. Am I correct? Mostly, and you did
Yes.
that in a grand scale in kind of startup tech world, um, but then you moved into more of a holistic coach area. Tell me a little bit more about that and why the big move.
That's a great question. Yeah, so, I was in the high-tech industry in marketing and um, it even at the time back in the 2000s, it started to change. It became more data driven,
Mm.
which, to some extent is a good thing. But um, I also noticed that with that, a little bit of this, um, the connection with the customer got lost.
Ah,
That
yes.
they're actual people behind the screens, behind the numbers.
Mm.
And so while I was in the high tech business, I also saw the good, the bad, and the ugly of leadership. And so it started my own personal journey around leadership and personal development, professional development. And I ended up getting a couple of coaching certifications
Mm.
and wanted to move into more leadership coaching, and was invited to do some marketing for a friend who was in a completely different industry and recognized, oh, wait, it's not the marketing, it's the marketing. In many instances, it is done by corporations that I don't align with. And so that got me really started on this journey of what at the time I was calling embodied marketing,
Mm.
because I was all into somatic coaching.
Mm.
Um, and I started to look at it from the perspective of, especially as small single entrepreneurs,
Mm.
we are the brand, we are the face of our business, what it takes to actually have the courage to create visibility for what we're excited about and to stand out and to have a voice and all of those questions that come up, which, I initially didn't even realize how big of a topic that was. Coming from my background in marketing, I thought, well, marketing is the least thing I have to worry about. I know what to do. I know the tactics.
Yeah.
Um, but then starting my own business pretty quickly, I realized, oh, it's very different to promote someone else's product versus my own services,
Yeah.
which already is a different way of engaging with it because services are very individual, very much driven off someone hires you because they resonate with you.
Yeah.
People interview 5 coaches, but the one they go with is not necessarily because of their um, expertise or background, is because
Mm.
there's some resonance that got created in the conversation.
Yeah. And you specifically, your messaging is specifically around empathic, kind of, the quieter ones of us that struggle to really put ourselves out there. um, is that something you identify with? Is it something that you feel? And I mean, I know there is a big need for it, because it's such a jump to go from being internally focused to now showing a face to the world. But not only that, it's also, marketing has got a bad rap in my books. um,
Yes,
because it's got that advertising aspect of creating a lack mindset, so that you can fill the lack or the gap.
yes,
And that's a very difficult thing to create for an empath, or someone that's connected to their audience even, and
yes.
themselves.
Absolutely. Yes. I think that's a big part of it. And I'm always fascinated when I talk to people who are empathic or highly sensitive.
Mm.
Um, we can feel that it doesn't resonate, that there is this, like you said, this fear-driven, FOMO-driven um, approach to marketing, and it works because it really taps into people's anxieties or fears and survival instincts and all of those things that get triggered by it. It
Yeah.
really works. And yet when we have a more sensitive um, approach to living and watching our environment, we can also tell that it's not based on really resonance, on connection um, of building more long-term relationships.
Yes.
And so, in that sense, it seems to me, and I've been watching this over the last 15 years or so, that there's a real shift happening. And because of those of us who are more intuitive or introverted, I think we saw it coming
Yeah.
earlier. Um, but now I feel like there's almost, we're at a tipping point where it becomes more and more clear to more people. And the reason why I'm saying it is because I also see a lot of the people who stood out in marketing over the last few years, who built large audiences, who had a lot of success with this more, this what I would call traditional marketing. I kind of see them starting to struggle with it because it's not just us as um, entrepreneurs who have a problem with it, but also more and more consumers
Mm.
are getting more knowledgeable, or more, they are more attuned to it.
Yeah.
And they're starting to say, you know what, I'm done with getting hundreds of emails every day and getting all these fear-based buy now, so otherwise it doesn't
It's
open
good.
again for a year, or whatever that fear trigger is.
Yeah.
Um, they're opting out. And so the marketing that's been promoted over the last 10 years for coaches or any kind of small business owner, um, I think is going through a real revamp right now and a shift. And so
Yeah.
this is a good time to actually decide how we want to do it differently.
Which is very exciting, because I think and I hope that the majority of the world is waking up a little bit to that. Instead of that, consumerist kind of, I need to spend money to fuel the economy, to more like a citizen, like we can stand together and create a better, space that we want to live in, instead of one that's driven by fear. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So you are talking a lot about authentic marketing, which is, really cool, because authenticity and, all that is the new, I don't know, the new in thing, isn't it? And
Yeah.
rightly so, because we tired of pretending to be things that we are. So, what would be, or what is the thing that you most find helps people kind of um, get that aha, okay, I can do this marketing thing authentically. What how do we do that? How do we not get stuck on that, oh, this is so difficult?
It's a fabulous question. What I see, I do a lot of work with my clients around allowing those false masks, that how I call them, to let them go, to let them drop, and to reconnect to who we are, and to, in a way, rediscover ourselves, our authentic selves, our values, our integrity, what we're really standing for, which then also drives the messaging, of course. But it oftentimes really starts going back to who am I? Can I connect to the larger soul that I am, and connect to the purpose that drives what I'm doing here, so that I can actually get out of um, the fears that we have about being seen and doing the work and all of that is.
Mm,
Once we are more connected to that authenticity within us, it's so much easier then to say, okay, based on who I am, that automatically drives the message that
yeah,
I know resonates with me when I speak from it. And that then can attract the right kind of people to also say, oh, yeah, that resonates.
yeah. So it sounds like it's more a holistic experience with you than a marketing kind of centered
Yeah,
approach. It's more turning within, and then it's much easier to work from there. Um,
absolutely.
mm,
Yes, that's always part of the process.
mm,
Um, and then, it always depends, of course, on the person. Some people have done a lot of work in that arena already, and it's more of a fine tuning and looking at, well, how do I take what I've discovered about myself, what I'm living, who I am, what I'm embodying into my marketing message. With others, it's a longer process of truly recognizing who they are, what they want to bring into the world. And then on the marketing side of things, it's also oftentimes a very different approach, because I don't go about saying, this is how you should be doing marketing, but rather I work with people to look at, well, again, based on who you are authentically, um, and how you're already showing up in the world, what is the best way for you to actually leverage that into creating a marketing approach
mm,
and marketing tactics that go along with it? Because there's so much hype right now about this whole digital marketing,
mm,
and it's a great way to get out into the world if you are someone who is constantly on social media and interacting with people and loving that kind of engagement.
yeah,
But especially when it comes to empathic and sensitive people, a lot of them, they barely even have a social media account, much less engage in there. And so then the question very quickly becomes, is that really the place that you feel comfortable spending a bit of time to get momentum going for visibility?
yeah.
Or are there actually different ways of doing marketing that feel much more in alignment for you and that is actually doable?
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
definitely. And it is about where you are comfortable for you to be able to get your message across.
yes.
And do you use any specific tools in helping people connect with themselves, or is it more through feeling? Is it something that you've kind of gotten in touch with internally within yourself?
Yeah, I use different modalities. I have a background in um, healing energy, energy healing modality that I use. I work with people using like the human design or gene keys profiles
Mm,
to get some idea how the messaging can be used. I use different kind of spiritual approaches that I've been um, exploring over the last 20 years that I bring into the process. So it's an amalgam, I would say, of the different things that I've learned and that are very much attuned to the individual that I'm working with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing because I mean it's all different angles to the same um entity or the same soul because and very interesting. I'm busy diving a little bit into human design as well, learning about it, and a little bit of enneagram on the other side, and a little bit of everything. So it's very very interesting to explore and help you understand a little bit more about how you show up in the world, which is of course also how you would connect with your audience. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
they're great tools to look at. It's like almost like a map for us, right? To
yeah,
see what resonates, or showing us very much like, oh, here is one area that actually keeps me stuck in my old ways of doing and thinking. But there's the opposite or the continuum of it that I
yeah.
also have access to. And if I tip into that one, all of a sudden things start to open up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. And you told me I actually had a conversation with the my members about this astro mapping or uh,
Uh-huh.
yeah, which is
Astrocartography.
that's it, astrocartography, which is also kind of based on those human design elements, and then connecting it back to the earth, and how we show up, because we show up differently, not just with different people, but also in different places, I think. Um,
Yes.
yeah. Tell me more. I'm very interested in kind of perspectives on that. Yeah,
Yeah, for me, it always boils down to everything is energy.
yeah,
And places have energies, people have energies, environments, groups have energies.
yeah.
And so if we feel like there's resonance, there's something that feels in flow,
Mm,
that to me is kind of the indication of, okay, so there is something to pursue.
yeah,
And if we keep hitting the same walls over and over and over again, then it may be time to look at, well, what's happening here? Is this really the right approach? Is it really the right audience? Is it really the right services? Is it, all these things that then come into question. Is it the right groups, the right place that I'm engaging in? And that's where the beauty of introspection comes in, because we are actually willing to go there and to say, wait a second, um, is there something that I just have to fine tune in my approach? Or is there literally something that doesn't work for me because it's just not in resonance with who I am?
I think it's also got quite a bit to do with comfort zones, because if we get stuck in our comfort zones, we don't always get to grow. And the universe, or whatever we want to call it, has this ability to just give us a bit of a nudge every now and then and say, well, hang on a minute, you've been here a bit too long. I think it's time to maybe grow a little bit more. And
Yeah.
then we go around in the spiral again, and maybe learn the lessons a little bit deeper.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a continuous process. And in that way, for me, what I've discovered over the last few years is business building is literally a spiritual journey. If you take it from that perspective, it's an ever learning, ever evolving process of seeing who am I right now, and what wants to come forward now, and being in this process of constantly checking into what's true for me now, um, instead of having these longer term plans of, okay, this is how I envisioned it 5 years ago and this is how it needs to happen.
Yeah.
um, that can sometimes work, but a lot of times derails us.
And I think it is appreciating how different we are. I think this is June. The Facebook on the Facebook group, it doesn't always show me who the person is, but um, she's saying that I recently hit a wall and I'm going through that introspection now. So we're all very excited to meet you, or they are. They haven't met you yet. Next week in our masterclass. Um, yeah, I want to kind of just touch on that, what you just said, because that's for me quite a thing. And I see it pop up everywhere. You know, you have to set your goals and you have to do it this way and you have to have your to do list or your checklist. And, you know, if you don't, then you know, you're not going to make it. Um, it's not June, it's Stephanie. um, Hi, Stephanie. So what have you found worked? Because I think it's also, you know, allowing ourselves to be different and weird and not to judge ourselves according to what we are being told we should be doing. Because that
Yes.
that should who is it, Mickey, that keeps saying the shoulda, you know, it's a big thing that, you know, you always feel like you're falling short because you're not what it doesn't work for you. You know, goals make my throat go closed and my palms go sweaty because they are not always, yeah, I don't know, I struggle with it.
That is such an important point that you're bringing up there. Um, and it's, it's only been recently that I really had this aha moment where I was looking at different people, how they're doing their marketing. And within a short period of time, I had this one person who was talking how they are, I mean, it's so organized and so scheduled and everything so perfectionized by having all these systems put in place, and they're hugely successful, and it's great, it works for them. And then I was listening to someone else talking about how she is doing her marketing, and it's all very much instinctively living. For she is just guided by her heart, and she just pursues it, and she is um, again really successful with her approach because it works for her.
Yeah.
And so it got me start thinking about, so how does it happen that for different people it's so different? And it dawned on me that we're really, it's like a continuum. There's this hugely structured, there's this totally heart centered, guided, today I do this and it works, and tomorrow I do that, and then there's something in the middle. And personally, I find myself falling somewhere in the middle, where I recognize I do need a little bit of structure,
Hmm.
or else I don't get anything done.
Yeah.
And I also need to have that heart-centered,
Hmm.
intuitively guided approach. And so um, it literally means we need to discover for ourselves what it is that works for us.
Yeah.
And we can learn from other people's approaches, but ultimately it's a hugely individualized process. And um, oftentimes what I see is people go into business because they are excited, they're passionate about what it is that they're offering, and the business building is just not exciting to them. And to some extent, I get it, because that's not why we started the business. We wanted to deliver our services. And yet, in order to actually have a business and not just have a hobby,
Hmm.
um, we do need clients. And so get falling in love with the process of building a business and doing marketing um, feels hugely important as
Hmm.
part of that journey, so that we actually can be successful in delivering what we would love to contribute to the world.
While enjoying it, I think that's
Yes.
the trick, is to, you know, when you start out, it's such a exciting process. but you do need to have, or you need to outsource some of it, which is also a great way to do it. But you have to understand it first before you can do that, I think. Um, oh, Bimbai. Hi, Bimbai. So great to see you. Yeah, interesting how some methods work for some, but not for others. Could it be related to products in some cases?
I could well see that depending on the industry that you're in,
Hmm.
that there are different approaches that work better than others. Um, but I would say in general, the most important thing that I have found is that, we talked about the authenticity piece and being in resonance, but the other part that comes into it is also um, continuity, and marketing and business building thrives on continuity. So um, if it isn't an alignment with us, and if we cannot actually fall in love with it, and because we enjoy it, it's really hard for most people to keep it up. And some people are really good to still push ourselves, but many of us, I see it over and over again. People start, okay, I heard I need to do social media, so I do it, and for 3 months they're great, and then it falls flat again. Um, and so part of it is this being in engagement, and in the flow and in the movement, um, and what I also have seen with a lot of these marketing approaches, in a way, it has the energetic imprint of the person who teaches it. And so if you don't fully embody it for yourself, take it on for yourself, and fuse it with your energy,
Yeah.
it can be actually hard to be successful with it and be engaged in it. The other thing that I will say is, we often see these highly successful people, especially online, who have these beautiful videos or beautiful social media, and they're constantly posting and all of that. And when you look behind the scenes, they often have teams of up to 40 people to actually make that happen.
Yeah.
So, it's always look at where you are at right now and compare yourselves to those people, if you have to compare yourself at all, which is not, it's not a good thing, but we'll get into that easily. But it's important to recognize when we see these highly successful people
Yeah.
that they actually have large teams behind them, and
Yeah.
so it's not where they started out. And it actually takes a lot of effort to have that kind of a presence.
Yeah.
So um, I guess where I'm getting with it is to have a more realistic
Mm.
um, expectation of, where I want to be and what it takes to get there from with my efforts.
Yeah, and also be realistic around social media specifically. I mean, you can put a lot of hard work into a post and it you might be sitting with crickets, and that doesn't mean that, your value is, or the value of your product or service is not attached to that in any way. And that's what I think makes it difficult, because you can have the best intentions to post, I don't know how many times a week or a day. um, it's difficult to not have that reward, that implied reward to come back. So it is also, I suppose, especially as solopreneurs or small businesses, to be not focused, kind of directed in what brings me joy, and can be a consistent flow for
Yes.
me to uphold without any outside affirmation or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, part of it, I oftentimes have an impression that it's a misunderstanding about social media,
Mm.
because social media is really it's only part of the process.
Mm,
It's the visibility part. But then you actually have to find ways to get people engaged deeper with you, to get into the connection and ultimately the sales conversation part.
mm,
And so if you're just focusing on the visibility um, by posting,
mm.
most people will not generate revenue
Yeah,
through that
yeah.
activity alone.
And it's also about connection. I think marketing is very much about connection, because you also want to show interest in the people that are your audience or your ideal customer or whatever you want to call them, because they want to feel valued. I want to feel a valued customer. um, if I work with someone, especially as a coach or that kind of service based. So it is important. Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, I years ago I started to rename marketing as connection building,
I love it.
because I truly believe that's the crux of it. That's where it all eventually will move to and needs to move to. And um, the whole, there are so many tools out there right now and coming online every day, it seems like. So which in a way is positive because, especially as solopreneurs, I think if we can embrace some of these tools as a productivity
Yeah.
support, it's great.
Yeah.
And it's hugely important to not lose the fact that, or the perspective that it's all about connection building and that these tools cannot replace that. It will help us to actually focus more on what is fun, that connection building, versus all these sometimes boring or laborious
Yeah.
parts.
Yeah, I've actually been playing quite a bit with ChatGPT
Uh-huh.
recently, and I created a short course on using ChatGPT by using ChatGPT. So I asked it to create an outline for me, and then I went back to it for each one and created little, what the prompts brought back, and I learned a lot. And I've just added something yesterday, which I thought was brilliant. Someone, Chris, actually sent me a real Instagram reel, and it was, the prompt starts off with, in a minute, I'm going to ask you to write me some content, a blog, Instagram post, and other content for my business. But first, I want you, ChatGPT, to ask me at least 20 questions about my business and my audience so that you can do this to the best of your ability. And it was brilliant because
That is brilliant.
yeah, it came back with very relevant questions, obviously, and according to the answers to the of the questions, it then built me some, blog outlines and Instagram posts and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, it is such a great tool for a small business owner. You still need the creativity part, and the connection part is still with you, but
Yes,
that linear kind of creating the structure and all that kind of thing is now being taken care of. It's lovely.
absolutely.
Mm.
And one of the things that's where we have to be very careful with things like ChatGPT is that it's like this tech phrase of garbage in, garbage out. So you have to be really good at the prompts
Yeah.
to actually get good content, and you also have to have the knowledge to check if what
Oh
you're
yes.
receiving back is actually of true value
Yeah.
or not garbage,
No,
literally.
exactly, because at the end of the day, it is regurgitating what it finds. So when it finds bias or whatever, I've actually been teaching it quite a bit about South African wine and all kinds of stuff. And also I'm busy with a rebrand now. I kind of mentioned it earlier, and I gave it just a simple prompt because we have this discussion in the house around instinctive living, which is my, it's like it's a such a powerful phrase for me, because I think that's where instinctively we know what, we have with the wisdom, and we know what it is. So I went to ChatGPT and I said, what is instinctive living? Just that. And it gave me a long paragraph of exactly what I wanted. And I was like, okay, well, that's great. It's obviously starting to get to know, maybe, I don't know, kind of the information I'm looking for. Um, yeah, which is it makes life very easy, really. But you do need to put yourself in there as well, and make sure what it is talking about, especially factually.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, and it's great fun.
Yeah, I think it's going to really help um, productivity, and I could well imagine that it will help us to overcome these blockages that we sometimes have. Oh my God, now I have to do a blog or post or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Um, on the flip side, it also will hugely increase the volume of content that's going to be out there.
yeah.
Because now every person who was kind of held back by, well, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to post? Is going to use ChatGPT to tell me what to post, and they're going to post. So there's going to be a huge amount of content flooding the
Mm,
market, I imagine, or I expect.
yeah,
Um, so, which on the other side then comes back to that authenticity of saying, well, how can I truly show up creatively, originally, and standing out by being authentic in who I am and how I'm showing up, um, and how I'm sharing, and all of those questions become even more important now than they were half a year ago.
oh, exactly. Definitely. Um, I'm actually get very irritated when I ask it to write me copy sometimes, because it uses over exaggerations, and everything is like the best and the greatest. Um, and I can pick that up in other copy that I read, and it's not authentic. I think there's a difference between um, getting AI assisted content, or using AI to assist, and solely depending on it, because you have a voice, and your voice
Exactly.
is definitely important. Yeah.
Yes, and the voice is one of the big components of
Mm,
how we bring across resonance and our
yeah.
energy. So, you know, if it if we use it with the prompts of what's the topic, what might be
Mm,
the outline, those
mm,
kind of questions, I would say definitely. When it comes to the actual wording, I
mm,
would be very careful to make sure that it actually is in resonance with how you talk, you speak, you show up, that it carries your energy, because
yeah.
that is something that comes back over and over again. Oftentimes I hear people asking, oh, I put out this content on my website or on my social media, and this other person, she just copied it, and they get frustrated about it, and I get it. And what I can always say is, yeah, but it carries your energy,
Mm,
your voice.
yeah.
So she's actually promoting your energy by copying
Yeah.
your content. So it's words have energy, and the way we're speaking them, of course, carries even more energy. But
Mm,
um, from that perspective, yeah, it's important that we keep bringing our own voice, our authenticity through all that content.
yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I can imagine that's a big part of your process, is to help people to find that voice and to
Exactly.
connect with it as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to mention that we get to spend some time with Britta next week in a masterclass, and it's going to be all about building a sustainable business, authentic through authentic marketing. Do you want to just touch on what we will be doing, kind of just broadly? Because I know I'm very excited about it.
I am too. And yeah, I will say it's in a way a continuation of this conversation, um, that will look at the differences in marketing approaches, and then really dive into the key components for authentic marketing, which in a way I would summarize as who we are, our authentic self, our essence, and really tapping into that, bringing that into our business, um, our mindset. And there's a lot of pieces around how that actually can be detrimental in our business building. And then the skill set of how I go about doing authentic marketing, and we'll get into some ideas for that you can take away for yourself
Yeah,
to look at your current approach, or reattune it wherever you are in your business building right now, but that you can take some actual steps with you at
brilliant,
the end.
brilliant. And to enjoy it again, because I know, as a small business owner or a solopreneur, it can become a little bit tedious to get that newsletter out or that email or that whatever it is post. Especially as summer is approaching in the northern hemisphere, you'd rather be outside in the sunshine. And yeah, so connection is a great way to kind of focus on, I think, and firstly connecting with ourselves. Yeah.
Yes, and summer is a perfect time to look at, what we've done over the last 6 months,
Yeah.
to then come into this alignment of, okay, so where does the rest of the year look like for me? Um, and having some new ideas, fresh inspiration, um, to
Because
maybe.
it also, our seasons also carry energy, don't they? We had a
Yeah,
lovely masterclass. Was it last month? I think yes, with Janice Campbell around the elements. So the five elements, and how the seasons kind of have their energy, and yeah, bring us into different mind states, I suppose. And summer would be one of excitement, I think, and building and creating and all that. Yeah.
yeah, and from my learnings, I would totally agree. It's this arc,
Yeah.
and summer is also about the visionary to look at, well, what do I envision for
Yeah.
myself, for my business, and
Yeah.
tapping into that energy, which is exciting.
Yeah, very much. And I see that happening quite a lot around me at the moment, or in me maybe. You know, finding these new things that just fall into place and kind of create the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Britta. It was amazing. You just came off a wonderful holiday, so I am very honored that you came to spend some time with me while you were still kind of settling back in at home. Um, is there anything that stood out from your trip that you'd like to share? Because I'm a little bit curious and I haven't asked it all.
Yeah, I went to Europe, and I spent almost a month there, traveling around also a little bit. Um, and I will say what did stand out, was a little bit of that excitement of um, possibilities starting to open up again, it feels like,
Yeah.
uh, and opportunities of well, where is all of this going? There's so much, in a way, anxiety and um, uh, uncertainty.
Mm,
And yet, out of that, I also start to feel like there are new things emerging and excitement growing, and
yeah.
people coming more into alignment and wanting to have that more of
Mm,
who they are and how they're showing up as part of their life, their business.
mm,
And so all of that was really awesome and inspiring for
yeah.
me as well to witness.
Oh, amazing. Oh, yeah. That's very good to hear from another perspective as well. I think we've kind of gotten used to the flow a bit. There's lots of downs as we kind of moving into. I feel some excitement. I hope, um, but it's definitely a newness. It's
Yes.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. And in a way, it almost feels like we cannot even really envision yet what that will look like.
Yeah.
That right now everything is a little bit crumbling, these old ways of doing things.
Mm,
But the more we are in that alignment within us, coming from a heart-centered place, I
mm.
think it'll find its way ultimately.
Exactly. Yeah. And it needs to crumble for the new to kind of build. So it is good. Thank you so much.
Thank
It,
you, Michelle. I'm very much looking forward to next week.
Me too. Me too. And it was great spending some time with you again.
Same
Um,
here.
and I will see you next week.
Sounds great. See you then.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.